Let us begin today's discussion with the concept of catharsis that Aristotle has discussed. And Aristotle has pointed out in detail about catharsis in his last book, in a greater length, Politics. And Aristotle, in this text of Poetics, which we somehow find that is incomplete in itself, a fuller discussion of catharsis may have originally appeared in the missing book that we don't have, but a little comfort that we might or we must do our best with whatever little words that Aristotle wrote about catharsis can be used to understand the whole idea behind this catharsis. The context of Aristotle's reference to catharsis in politics, in his book Politics, is related with discussions to various kinds of musics, various uses of music, you can say. What Aristotle is saying in that Politics about catharsis is that music played a very important role. This is not this discussion he has not initiated in Poetics, but he is talking about this in Politics. Music for children has an educative function. With the help of music, you can train children, you can teach children, you can make children to understand certain things. So, music for children has an educative function. For adults, it has a role in relaxation and leisure. But what Aristotle says, it can also bring catharsis. Aristotle, when talking about music, saying that music can bring catharsis amongst the adults, Aristotle gave example, refers to people who prone to enthusiasm. Enthusiasm means what he means by enthusiasm. What Aristotle means by enthusiasm is that some people will get hysterical or having an aesthetic frenzy which is associated with certain religious cult of that time, like the cult of Dionysus. Aristotle observes that music makes these music makes these people to calm down. It will giving a calming effect to the hysterical behavior of those people of the time. And that's why music play a very crucial role in bringing out the people out of their hysterical position. He mentioned in very carefully about that. The emotions which affect some minds violently exist in all. This is what Aristotle is saying. This is what Aristotle quoted, and I'm quoting it. The emotion which affects some minds violence, violently exists in all, but in different degrees. For example, pity and fear, and also enthusiasm. For some people are prone to the prone to this disturbance, and we can observe the effect of the sacred music on such people. Whenever they make use of songs which arouse the mind to frenzy, they are calmed and attain as it were healing and catharsis. Necessarily, precisely, the same effect applies to those prone to pity and fear, or in general any other emotion, and to others to the extent that each is susceptible to such things. For all there occurs catharsis and pleasurable relief. Unquote. This is what Aristotle said about music, how it brings catharsis, how you can attain catharsis through music. You will find out, my friends. If I give examples to you which are very much close to our understanding, is that in some communities in India, especially, when someone die, the funeral of that particular person will take place along with music. We have seen that in the society, that music is played and the whole funeral process is going on. Now, when this funeral process is going on, then along with music, why this music? Because due to that shock, some people may behave frenzy. Some people will behave hysterically. And that's why, to calm down, to make those people get relaxed, to make these people to calm down at their level, the music plays an important role. You will find out at various religious places music is being played to calm down the people. And that is what Aristotle is trying to say, that this music, this catharsis, music is used to arouse catharsis. This is a sort of catharsis. Catharsis doesn't mean just to arouse pity and emotions of pity and fear only. No. Catharsis means purification of your soul, taking out the emotions which are controlling you for a long time. You have to take down those and make your soul purified. Purgation of emotions. Emotions are taken away, carried out. So the relief that catharsis brings is pleasurable. Please understand this thing. Otherwise, what will happen? We are continuously thinking that catharsis means to arouse emotions of pity and fear and purification of soul, purgation of human feelings. Once those feelings were get out after looking at particular things, why it is said, you have seen, I'm deliberately giving you these examples, that when you go to certain places where you find that someone is died or someone is expired, and that time if somebody is not crying, people start talking about that person so loudly, so that the person who has not cried yet has to cry. People say if he or she will not cry, he or she will go in shock. They'll start behaving hysterically. They'll speak in that particular way. And that's why it is important for us to understand that catharsis means taking you out of that particular position, purgation. And so the relief that catharsis gives you after crying, sort of relief you get. If you are sad, you cry. Why you cry? Cry is a sort of cathartic effect that your mind has taken. This cathartic effect gives you after crying. What happens after crying? You feel relaxed. You feel sometimes a relaxation from that particular phase that you are facing with. So catharsis brings pleasure, a pleasure that comes from the catharsis of pity and fear, the catharsis that is coming out of pity and you are feeling pity for that person, you are feeling fear for that person, and out of that you start getting thinking about it. You start thinking about that particular thing. You start thinking about that particular impact. Pity and fear brings you to take out the emotions from your mind. Watching the thing happen to that particular person on the stage, and if you face same sort of situation in your routine life, at that time how will you behave, whether you behave in an expected way or you know that how to behave in this particular situation. It will teach you, it will take you out, it will take out that emotions of pity and fear. How should I behave? Once the emotions of pity and fear evoke in you, it has to get out from your behavior so that you can sustain at any situation, you can survive at any situation. Now please understand that how Plato said that there is no place for an emotional person in his ideal state. Now, why emotions are important, why these emotions should take place, Aristotle is clarifying it that if you can have a purgation or purification of human soul from these sorts of fear, they can survive, they can sustain in such type of situations in their day-to-day life. Once they survive in this situation, they can become an ideal citizen. And that's why it is important that a pleasure that comes from the catharsis once you cry after looking that scene, and emotions are getting out once you cry after looking that someone you love died, and then at the death of your lovable person makes you to cry. It doesn't mean that you will forgive or you will not remember him. You will not forget, you will not remember, you will remember that person for a long time, but the remembrance will remain in some different way. You will not be in shock. It will take you out of that. That is catharsis, to cry, to give away all the things. That's why most of the psychologists, when you talk with them in any sessions that you are in depression, they make you to speak more and more and more and more to create situations in front of you so that you start crying. And cry is a cathartic. Now, this cry gives you pleasure. This cry never gives you a sort of sad feeling. The sadness is also carrying a sort of pleasure. Pleasure doesn't equate with happiness only, my friends. If you are happy, then you are getting pleasure. No, pleasure doesn't equate with happiness only. Pleasure can be equated with the sort of relief you get. Why things make you pleasurable? Why you feel that you feel pleasure in the company of XYZ? Because it gives you a sort of relief. And that's why Aristotle used to say the cathartic effect of pity and fear can be possible only with tragedy, not with comedy. Because in comedy, you will not find any cathartic effect of pity and fear. So the question arises whether this cathartic pleasure is the pleasure of tragedy. Now, in trying to make the sense of notion of catharsis of pity and fear, one thing must be stressed. What is that thing? Aristotle does not think that emotions are bad things. Aristotle is not at all thinking like that. Emotions are bad things. In this respect, as I said you a time before, that he differs from Plato. Plato, whose critique of poetry in book 10 of the Republic is based in part on a profound suspicion of the emotions. He's suspicious about emotions. And in doing so, because it is one of the Plato's complaints that poetry arouses emotions. And once the emotions are arouses, it becomes the tendency of that particular society to be emotional. But in his views, in Plato's view, we should be bringing our emotions under control and not strengthening them in any way. If poetry arouses emotions again and again, again and again, again and again, then what will happen? The society will become emotional and the society will not able to control their emotions. If you if I give a very interesting example for you that makes you to understand very quickly, I think most of you have seen a film called Munna Bhai MBBS. And in that film, Dr. Asthana said that when you start an operation of some patient, and if you find that that patient is your son or your daughter, and your hand shakes while cutting with the forceps, then you will not able to do the operation. You need not to follow your emotions at that time. You have to keep your emotions away and you should be professional at that time. What is it that? This is what Plato is saying. This is what Plato is pointing out. That you cannot make the society very emotional. And if this becomes a feature of the society, that this society is emotional, then anybody will play with that society and cannot build an ideal state. Look out, we are emotions right now. We are living in a state of emotional condition, emotions right now in India. Our emotions, we become an emotional society. Our emotions can be hurt with any, our sentiments can be hurt with any sorts of behavior. We have to control those emotions, and if you are not able to, and for controlling emotions, if it is arousing continuously, then it is difficult to control the emotions. That is what an objection of Plato regarding to poets, because emotions are aroused continuously, then it is not possible to control the emotions, it is not possible to have control over those emotions. And that's why Plato is not interested in making these people to come, but Aristotle has a sophisticated and reasonable view of emotions. Okay, this, if you try to understand what Plato is saying, somehow we might get convinced that what Plato is saying is quite right, that emotions are most difficult things to control. If you are crying at every situation, how would you try to control your cry? You have to control it. It should be under control. Everything should come under control. But somehow you will find out this under control, people started losing it. And that's why what Plato is justifying, we believe that that is right. But Aristotle has more sophisticated and reasonable view of emotions. What Aristotle is saying, that emotions are not irrational impulses. These emotions are not irrational impulses. Emotions are grounded in our understanding. Please understand, please remember this reason that Aristotle is giving. Emotions are not irrational impulses, they are grounded in our understanding. I'll give a very small example to you to understand this. If you're walking on the street and you find the accident has taken place and someone had died on the road, you never start crying immediately after looking the dead body. You understand where to cry. It is rooted in your understanding that at what moment I should open my tears to come out. When should I feel fear? When should I feel pity? It is grounded. These are not irrational impulses that at any time you are crying, at any time you are feeling sad, at any time you are feeling fearful, or any time you are feeling pitiful. No, this is not coming regularly. It has its own understanding. It is grounded in our understanding. And what Aristotle further says, that emotional responses are related with the situations. Situations or situation presupposes an interpretation of it. All these emotions are related, are response to a situation which we interpret. Nobody will analyze you that situation. Okay, this is the situation. Now you start crying, and you start crying after as soon as he stopped the word. No. As soon as he said, okay, now laugh, you start laughing. No, it's not like that. Or you, in your emotions, you will not say that, okay, somebody had said, no, 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 there's no place to cry, and you say, okay, I'll not cry, although you find it difficult to stop yourself. Emotions are response to the situation which has been interpreted by yourself. You interpret it that yes, this is the situation, and this interpretation makes you to behave accordingly. Now, why a fear? As fear implies an assessment of the situation as one that threatens pain or injury. When you started to become fearful when you know that yes, if I'm caught in this particular situation, this situation may injure me. In this situation, I may get injury, and because of that, I will feel pain. This fear that this will happen to me if I'm caught in this particular situation. This fear is a situational response. You are interpreting that if I got in this particular situation. Now imagine for a moment, my friends, when you are walking on a road at midnight alone, after going 10-15 steps ahead, you immediately looks back and thinks that okay, is there anyone behind me? And you find no one. Okay, I am walking again ahead. Why in the midnight you are afraid of that particular thing? What sort of fear is going on in your mind? How this fear is arousing in your mind? This fear is aroused in your mind because you feel that if somebody is behind me and if he hits me, it will give me pain and it will injure me. This fear is situational. When you are walking in the morning in the whole daylight, you will not feel this fear. This is situational emotion. The response to that particular situation, then your emotion arises. Not all the poetry makes you to cry, not all the poetry makes you to laugh. After listening all the poems, you become fearful, you become sad. No, that depends on the situation. That's why there is nothing available in this world which can makes you to immediately respond to it. The situations, there's a response to the situation, not to that particular thing. And that's why Aristotle's reason that how these emotions become part of human, and how these emotions are appropriate to human life. Now, if these situations are making you to respond with certain emotions, then these situations, these responses, the emotional response you are going, they're open to ethical evaluation also. You can evaluate whether this is the correct response or not. Ethical evaluation. They're open to ethical evaluation. You cannot say, no, what I am doing is quite right. I'm crying at every moment is right. No. Ethical evaluation of that particular situation. It is open to ethical evaluation. You can evaluate it. So there is a sort of intimate link between emotion and virtue. Because if you are a virtuous person, you can have an ethical evaluation of the emotions, responses that you have given to that particular situation, whether that is good or bad. What ethics says that if you are visiting to some places where the mourning is going on, are you going to celebrate it? You say no. If you are laughing at a place where people are sad because of the death of someone and you are laughing at that place, what people will say, what we will say, this response is ethically bad. You cannot give such type of response. So emotions are the responses to the situations, and those responses are open to ethical evaluation. You can evaluate it whether this response is correct or not correct. And that's why Aristotle has mentioned it, and I'll read it, what Aristotle has quoted it. I quote, for example, fear, confidence, desire, anger, pity, and in general, pleasure and distress can be experienced in greater or lesser degree, and in both cases wrongly. To feel them at right time in response to right things with regard to the right people, for the right reason, and in the right way, that is the mean and the optimum, which is the characteristics of virtue. This is what Aristotle means by. What are the characteristics of virtue? That he responds to the situation with an emotion which are right emotions and in front of right people with right reason in the right way. Because fear, confidence, desire, anger, pity, in any cases, in any responses, either it is in pleasurable responses or either in distress responses, they can be experienced in a greater way or in a lesser way. Somebody will feel it in a greater way, somebody will feel it in lesser way. But you have to understand that how you will put it. For example, to understand this, what Aristotle says, further he pointed out that deficiency or as well as excess of emotions, showing less emotions or showing excess emotions, is a deviation from ethical ideal. How long will you cry? There are certain limits. If you are facing certain problem in your body that you have to be operated, you have to get an operation of certain things, you have to take off your appendix, for example, appendix operation. You have to remove the appendix from your stomach. Now, before going for the operation, you feel very afraid of the things. Or there is a very common fear amongst most of us that if somebody is going to have an injection, the syringe, when it comes close, we start fearing how it will give me the pain. The pain is not that much difficult, but I'm afraid of that syringe. And once the operation has taken place, once the part is cut and there is stitches, then you start showing that stitches very proudly that look, this is how I'm being operated. Look at the stitches. Now, if while taking an injection, if the syringe comes, you start crying very loudly. There's an excess of emotion. Although it is, you may say, sir, how it is a deviation from ethical ideas. Ethically, it is said that you need not to shout and crowd loudly. A very simple thing is going on. They are putting an injection. They are injecting something in your body with a syringe. And when they are injecting something in your body with a syringe, you need not to shout loudly. It's an ethics. Naturally, there is going to be pain. With this injection of certain medicine, you are going to get cure. But what happened? If you start shouting loudly, this is an excessive emotions. It is deviation. Excess emotions or less emotions. That's why your personality defines those things. So deficiency or excess in showing emotions is a deviation from ethical ideas. For I'll give a little bit another example. A very common fear amongst most of us. Looking at a cockroach What happens with most of us? We start shouting looking after the cockroach. Or if I'm paralyzed with a fear at the sight of a mouse, I'm paralyzed. Oh, after looking at cockroach or a mouse, I'm paralyzed. Now my fear is inappropriate and it is excessive. And this is a sign of cowardice that I'm cowardice. But if I am sitting on a road and looking at a steam road roller is coming towards me, and I'm not afraid that if this roller is not stopped, I'm going to be crushed down, I'm going to die. I'm not having any fear and I'm not getting away from that place. It is not a sign of recklessness. It is again an excessive response to that emotion called fear. Looking at a fast truck is coming towards me on the road, and if I'm standing in between saying that, okay, let us see who will stop, I or the truck, what will you say to this person? You say this man is foolish. This is not called as a reckless. This is not called as a dared, very very strong person standing and facing. No, it is a sign of recklessness. It is not a sign of courage. Now, courage located somewhere between these two emotions. The emotion that you are paralyzed with a fear after looking a mouse or a cockroach, that is an excessive emotions of fear, and excessive emotions that showing you are strength and you are strong. Courage lies in between the two. The courage is not something different, because you recognizes the danger and you start behaving accordingly. If you don't recognize the danger, if you don't recognize that what is happening, what will happen to me, without recognizing the danger, if you are behaving, you are not, your responses are not correct. They are not proper to the ethical ideas. And that's why we need to understand the thing, my friends, that courage is located somewhere between cowardice and recklessness, recognizing in the real dangers and responding accordingly to them. You have to respond to those dangers accordingly. It is appropriate to feel fear in battle. If you did not, or you would be prone to act rashly, endangering your and your comrades' lives, because you are a leader in the battle and you are leading the whole team. You should have fear in your mind that yes, if I do some rash, if I take some rash decision, I'm putting my comrades' life in danger. Same thing happens with nowadays. If I put it this example with our contemporary situation, the driver, pilot, he should not act in a rash way that endangered the lives of the passengers sitting in that bus, believed on the skills of the driver. But this fear that okay, I am responsible for the lives of so many persons sitting behind me, and I have to act very consciously in this situation. If this fears is overwhelmed, if this fear is excessive in your in your behavior, then you will not able to handle the situation very properly. And that's why this fear should not be overwhelming. Otherwise, you might desert your post. You will take down. So, for Aristotle, the crucial point is the crucial point is not as it is with Plato. What Plato says to suppress your emotions, you should suppress your emotions. What Aristotle is pointing out, don't suppress your emotions. It is rather to feel the right degree of emotions in the right circumstances. You should have a right degree of emotions in proper circumstances, how to react in these circumstances. If this sense is in with the person, then the person is quite comfortable and suitable for the ideal state. You will not find any very simple thing to understand. If you suppress the emotions continuously, then what will be the result of it? The result of it that the person who suppressed his or her emotions for a long time may become psychic, may not be open for his own evaluation. The best example in the history is of Hitler, who suppressed his emotions to make Germany very great. And what happens? And that's why it is very much important that what Aristotle is trying to put it, that you should have your emotions, and those emotions should be proper. The emotions, you should feel emotions in right degree in at a right circumstances. So the catharsis of fear and pity cannot be understood as getting rid of those feelings. You want to don't want those feelings, get rid of those feelings. It is not mean, it is not possible. You will not able to get catharsis. Nevertheless, Aristotle does talk about catharsis in quasi medical terms. As I said to you, that what psychiatrists used to do, if you go and if you are a patient of depression, what psychiatrists used to do, they used to follow this catharsis, quasi medical term Aristotle is using. If you have not cried for a long time, the psychiatrist will make you to cry for a long time. He will make you to cry. Aristotle uses these terms in a quasi medical term in the passages written in Politics, in his book Politics. As we have simply just before some time, I read out two quotations from Aristotle's Politics. Now, in those subject to enthusiasm, which cathartic music brings about, as it was healing, it was for the sake of healing. People who are hysteric after listening the music, they will calm down. That is a quasi medical process. Cathartic music works as healing process. And all those prone to pity, fear, or any other emotion, they enjoy the catharsis and pleasurable relief that they are getting out of it. Catharsis is giving a sort of pleasurable relief. Once you are healed, you start to enjoy. That's what I said. Once you are operated, afterwards you start showing that place, that how it has been operated. Look how it is the cut, and look how these stitches are. Till the time you are on operation, you are going for an operation, you are afraid of it. Once you have been operated, you start showing it very proudly. Because that has given you a pleasure, that you come out of the pain, you are relieved. And once you are relieved, you started to get pleasure of the things. And that's why references to healing, relief imply that catharsis does, in some sense, put right thing at a right place, removing the wrong which is within us. Something is wrong within us. So this wrong is removed. This wrong is taken out. And when this wrong is taken out from us, it naturally will give a sort of relief, and this relief is a pleasurable thing for me. Once it were healed through catharsis of pity and fear, I will be feeling some sort of excitement regarding it. Now, question comes that what then if the emotions are not themselves to get down? That means you require always cathartic effect to take place. And if it's not possible to have cathartic effect at particular moment, at particular time, then what will happen to me? Now the obvious answer is, if you are excessive with those emotions, at that time cathartic effect is required. Excessive emotions, not for crying. Crying for a long time requires cathartic effect to make you down, to take you that emotions out. Catharsis is for excessive emotions. The catharsis of pity and fear would work on people whose disordered emotional susceptibilities make them prone to feel that these emotions are coming at wrong time, in response to wrong things, with regard to wrong people, for the wrong reason, or in the wrong way. For them, cathartic effect, catharsis of pity and fear would work by stimulating the emotion to which they're excessively prone. Tragedy discharges the tendency to excess. Tragedy discharges The tendency to excess, in this way, it gives re- relief to the pressures which the disordered emotional makeup exerts on the audience, exerts on the people. So the so that in their day-to-day life, in their ordinary life, they would not be prone to indulge the emotion in question. I'll repeat it once again, that the catharsis of pity and fear would work on the people who whose disordered emotional susceptibilities make them prone to feel that these emotions at wrong time, in response to wrong things, with regard to wrong people, for wrong reason, or in wrong way, their emotions are coming out, excessive emotions are coming out. So to stimulate these excessive emotions, to which they are excessively prone, tragedy discharges this tendency to excess. Tragedy relieves pressure which their disordered emotions put up, the disordered emotions carry with themselves. So in their ordinary life, when they face such type of situation, they'll not behave in a wrong ethical way. As I said, once you watch certain situation in tragedy, you are facing the catharsis, you are facing the purification, purgation, and at that time, once you saw this in tragedy, if you're finding it in your day-to-day life, in your ordinary life, you will not behave accordingly. You start to evaluate it. So if you look at this interpretation, looking on this kind of interpretation, catharsis does not purge the emotions in the sense of getting rid of it. Purgation or purification of human soul doesn't mean getting rid of all the emotions. Once you have a cathartic effect that these emotions are not of your part, that emotions are not of your body, that emotions are not of your personality, it is not like that. Catharsis is not making you to get rid of those sorts of emotion. It get rid of an emotional excess emotions, and it leaves the emotion in the more balanced state. It is making you to behave appropriately in those situations in your ordinary life. It makes you to behave very properly in your ordinary life. Then there should be one simple question in our mind, that then why should this be pleasurable? Now, the answer is, from an Aristotelian point of view, any process that restores one to natural or healthy state is pleasurable. That is a very simple thing. The process which makes you to feel healthy, the process which restores your natural condition is pleasurable. You cannot define pleasure, that how it is going to happen. If you are prone to feel some emotions to excess, naturally you are in not in good condition, you are not in natural state, you are in unnatural state. This is the disorder of your emotional condition, and this is analogous to your disorder in physical condition also. When you are thirsty, and satisfying your thirst is pleasurable, but when someone has trodden you on your toe, it is nice to feel the throbbing die away. Something similar will apply to the restoration of your emotions to bring you in natural and healthy state. Quenching your thirst by drinking water gives you pleasure. Now this pleasure makes your body to restore its natural condition, natural state, healthy state. Similarly, catharsis is bringing you back to your natural and healthy state, and that's why it is pleasurable, taking away the excessive things out of your body. It gives you a sort of pleasure, and that's why catharsis is a pleasurable thing. Now, how Aristotle moves further in talking about catharsis, cathartic effect, and how this is the characteristic pleasure of tragedy, and how this works out, we will discuss that thing in tomorrow's lecture, so that we will move ahead with the discussions of catharsis there. Thank you for